Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into the really fascinating world of classic cinema and television. We're looking for those, public gems, films maybe you haven't heard of, but they hold these amazing insights once you take a closer look.
Exactly. And for this deep dive, we're zeroing in on a really key piece of rock and roll history. It's the 1956 musical drama, Rock, Rock, Rock. Now, you might initially think, okay, just a bunch of songs strung together, but, well, it offers so much more about that whole era.
Totally. So our mission really is to take all these great sources you've brought and unpack them. We'll look at the music, which is groundbreaking, the plot, which is surprisingly detailed, and, where it sits in film history. The goal is for you, listening, to feel really clued in without getting bogged down in, endless trivia. Okay, let's get into it.
All right, so Rock, Rock, Rock. 1956. It was conceived, co-written, and co-produced by Milton Subotsky, with Will Price directing. And its real claim to fame, historically speaking, is being an early jukebox musical. Think about modern movies built around existing songs like Mamma Mia or Bohemian Rhapsody. Well, Rock, Rock, Rock was laying that groundwork way back then.
And it's interesting, this was actually the first time Milton Subotsky and Max Rosenberg worked together on a feature film. They became a pretty significant producing duo later on, plus they made it incredibly quickly. Filming started August 13th, 1956. Makara Studios up in the Bronx near the Botanical Gardens, and they shot the whole thing in just 2 weeks. Astonishing, really. The whole film runs about, an hour and 25 minutes?
Yeah, 1 hour, 25 minutes, 39 seconds to be precise. That super fast production kind of tells you something about early rock and roll movies. Maybe less focus on elaborate sets, and more on just capturing that raw musical energy. But here's the really juicy part, especially for anyone interested in these public gems. The film went into the public domain, in the U.S. anyway, back in 1984.
Right, and that's why it's so easy to find now. It happened because the claimants, whoever held the rights, they just didn't renew the copyright registration. You had to do that in the 28th year after publication back then. So unlike tons of other films locked behind licenses or streaming deals, Rock, Rock, Rock is basically out there for anyone to watch. It's a free piece of history.
It really is, almost like open source cinema, giving you this unfiltered window into the past.
Sure.
Although there's a small catch, maybe, a nuance. Well, the film is public domain. The individual songs, well, many of those might have had separate copyrights. So you can watch the movie freely, but using a specific song commercially, that might still involve the original music labels or publishers.
Okay, that's a good point. Important if you're thinking of using clips or something. But let's talk about the main attraction, the music and the stars. Because this film is stacked. It's like a who's who of early rock and roll. You've got Chuck Berry, the amazing Laverne Baker, Teddy Randazzo, the Moonglows, the Flamingos, and, get this, the Teenagers featuring Frankie Lymon. This was actually their film debut. Huge for them at the time.
It's incredible how many big names and future stars they packed in. And it wasn't just the singers. You have the legendary DJ Ellen Freed playing himself. That adds this layer of authenticity to the whole 50s vibe. And keep your eyes peeled during the performance scenes because a very young Valerie Harper is supposedly in there as an extra. Her debut, too. Oh, and David Winters, who later ended up in West Side Story, he's in the cast as well.
Wow, so many careers just starting out. And speaking of careers in the industry, it's telling that pretty much everyone in the cast was signed to a record label. The film even credits the labels right alongside the stars' names. It really shows how intertwined music and film were becoming even then, using movies to promote records and vice versa.
Absolutely. And if you look at the bigger picture, Rock, Rock, Rock holds another significant title. It's generally considered the first rock and roll movie to actually have a soundtrack album released. That album, also called Rock, 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 came out on Chess Records in December 56. That's a major milestone. It set a precedent.
Okay, first soundtrack album for a rock movie. That's big. But there's a funny little twist with that soundtrack, isn't there? It wasn't exactly a faithful representation of the movie's music.
Not entirely, no.
Yeah.
It's actually quite curious. The album only featured 3 artists, Chuck Berry, the Moonglows, and the Flamingos, with 4 songs each. But here's the kicker. Out of those 12 songs on the album, only 4 of them were actually performed in the movie. Those were over and over again. I knew from the start, you can't catch me, and would I be crying?
Only 4. That is strange for a soundtrack. So the album was more like a Chess Records sampler tied to the movie.
Pretty much, yeah. It seems like it was more about capitalizing on the film's buzz, using artists they had rights to, rather than a strict track-by-track record of the film's music, which, also tells you something about how the industry was figuring things out. But other songs did get released. Connie Francis's songs from the film I Never Had a Sweetheart and Little Blue Wren, they came out as singles on MGM Records. And the teenager songs Baby Baby and I'm Not a Juvenile Delinquent, those were released as singles too on G Records.
Okay, so the music got out there one way or another. Now, you hear Jukebox musical, and often, let's be honest, you expect the plot to be super thin, just an excuse for the songs. But you mentioned this one is different.
It really is. Rock. Has this surprisingly involved storyline that may be a bit quirky but detailed. So the main character is Dory, played by Tuesday Weld. She's totally into this aspiring singer, Tommy Rogers, but her immediate problem is getting a prom dress, especially because this new girl, Gloria Barker, just announced she's wearing this amazing strapless blue gown.
Ah, teenage prom dress drama, a classic.
Exactly. But then it gets into money troubles. Dory's dad, seeing her spending, closes her charge accounts. Ouch! She talks him into giving her $15 for the dress, which costs $30 if she earns the other $15 herself.
Okay. Seems reasonable, so how does she earn it?
Well, this is where it gets interesting. Dory decides she's going to become a banker. She borrows $15 from her friend Arabella. Then she tries to get another loan from some guy named Mr. Bimble using collateral. But her grasp of finance is, let's say, creative. She thinks 1% interest on $1 is $1.
Wait, what? 1% interest equals the principal. Oh, dear.
Yeah. It's charmingly naive, but obviously it's going to cause problems. And then her rival, Gloria, tries to ruin things. Gloria buys even more expensive dresses, somehow borrows Dory's $15. And then, to really stir the pot, Gloria tells Tommy about Dory's unique banking theory. So Tommy cancels their prom date.
Oh, wow. This is more complicated than I thought. So how does she fix this mess?
Well, Dory has this kind of clever, slightly coy chat with her dad about loans and, like, foreclosures. He mentions bankers can take ownership of collateral. Light bulb moment for Dory. She figures she can somehow claim Gloria's dress. There's another twist where it turns out both Dory's dad and Gloria's dad are somehow caught up in all this dress business. But Dory figures out a solution. Her dad pays Gloria's dad $30 for the more expensive dress Gloria bought. Dory gets the blue dress she wanted originally, and she uses the refund money to pay back Arabella.
Okay, my head's spinning slightly, but I think I got it. She gets the dress and pays off her debt. Pretty resourceful, actually.
Very. So the film wraps up at the prom. Dory initially goes with someone else. But Tommy, who's now making it as a singer, he's arranged for Alan Freed to bring his whole rock and roll show to their prom. So after a bunch of great performances by the guest stars, Tommy and Dory make up on the dance floor. Happy ending.
Quite a ride for a simple prom dress. And just to remind everyone, the actors. Tuesday, Weld is Dory, but it's Connie Francis doing the singing for her. Teddy Randazzo plays Tommy, Fran Manfred is Arabella, Jacqueline Kerr is the rival Gloria, and Jack Collins is Dory's dad. Pretty solid cast for such a quick shoot.
Definitely. So, okay, we've gone through the history, the music, the stars, the surprisingly complex plot. Let's pull back a bit. What does Rock really offer us, looking back now? Why should you, listening, care about this old movie?
Well, I think it's this incredible time capsule. It's more than just the songs. You get this real glimpse into what 1950s teenagers were thinking about, worrying about, their fashion, how they talked, their social scene, and yeah, even their very basic understanding of how money works. It really feels like opening a window onto that specific moment. And what strikes me is how it blends the real musical talent, Chuck Berry, Laverne Baker, with this, quirky but pretty engaging story. It shows you how they were packaging early rock and roll for young people using movies. It wasn't just listening to records, it was creating this whole visual world, this narrative around the music. It feels like a blueprint for music videos almost.
That's a great point. It definitely makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How did films like Rock actually help shape rock and roll culture, giving it visual stories, characters, beyond just the sound coming out of the radio? And maybe more broadly, how did these early efforts set the stage for the way music and movies and later TV and online media would become so inseparable?
Absolutely. So wrapping up our deep dive on Rock, it seems clear it's way more than just a simple musical. We found it's a pioneering jukebox musical, a really vital snapshot of the early rock scene. It has these interesting music industry firsts, like the soundtrack. And underneath it all, this surprisingly tangled teenage drama about dresses and questionable banking practices.
It truly fits our definition of a public gem, accessible history hiding in plain sight. So here's something for you, the listener, to think about. How many other films like this are out there? Forgotten movies, maybe even public domain ones, from that gold age or later. Movies that might hold similar hidden treasures. Debut performances, industry firsts nobody talks about, plots that reveal unexpected things about their time.
It really makes you wonder. And what does it say about these films, these gems, that even decades later they can spark all this discussion and offer these insights. Maybe it shows their enduring power. Anyway, something to chew on. And the best part, since rock is in the public domain, you can actually go find it pretty easily and do your own deep dive. So go check it out. Explore those public gems.